hadn't even read their lesson yet. No creativity, no fasting, no prayer, no tears. And Mom was losing the war. And she had to find somebody that was compelled about the will of God for their life. And it means I'm a teacher. It means I'm a Royal Angel leader. It means I will do this with the most serious bone in my body. But I have to tell you, I knew when the person was not really motivated. And coming in, one time I punched my Sunday school teacher in the belly. You know, it's not pleasing to God when we're lukewarm. And I want you to know it's disgusting to sinners when they see a lukewarm, half-hearted Christian. Do you know that? It's just absolutely disgusting for a person to proclaim their one thing when all the evidence points to another. Am I too hard here, Pastor? Am I off base? Would you agree with me that the will of God has to be compelling? Has to be urgent. Oh my. But I want you to know my mother prayed. And if you're here and you're a single mom, I want you to know there's a God in heaven that hears your prayer, and the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous person will avail much, and God will send. God will make a way, and God has made a way. Is what you're doing, is it compelling? Is there an action, a drive? Are there tears? Is the will of the Heavenly Father compelling? Next, the will of the Heavenly Father is costly. It's so costly. It will cost you time and resources, personal plans. His will must always come before our will. It is a long story, but my brother did come to Christ. And he became an Assemblies of God missionary. And my brother right now is in Hyderabad, India. And this Sunday, he is preaching to 6,000 Muslims and Hindus who have come to Christ. Because of a mother in that bedroom with a blanket over her head, groaning before God to save her kids. I think my brother is the best kept secret in the Assemblies of God. I tell people, if you can't get Apostle Paul, you need to get Earl Stubbs. He is an anointed man of God. But the will of the Heavenly Father is costly. I've seen my brother about 15 times in the last 30 years. Doesn't get to come home much. Indian government has told him early on, if you can leave for a year, then you're not needed. Don't come back. He can only come home for about 3 months and then has to go back to preserve his visa. He had to send his 2 girls to Malaysia, 3,000 miles away from himself, and only got to see them in the summer. A lifetime passes quickly that way, folks. The youngest one time wrote, "I'm so lonely, I'm thinking of killing myself." How costly is the will of God? Well, I want you to know she didn't. The 2 daughters are now married in the States, and this youngest one is 2 children and married to a Secret Service man who is protecting our president. The will of God is costly. Let me read to you a letter. This is missions effort. I'm going to stick on October the 11th, 1983, Hyderabad. My brother wrote me a letter. And I want to jump down to the middle of it. He says, prayer request. A 14-year-old girl, Humara, on the west side of Hyderabad, lives with her dad, retired Brigadier Hussein, and his family of an old royal Muslim family. Their second floor is rented out to an American couple in their 60s who are here on a tourist visa for a few months. They are Pentecostal Christians. Humara has been visiting back and forth with them over the last couple weeks, and she noticed a Christian book about a Sikh Hindu named Sadhu Sundar Singh who had come to know Christ. She asked to borrow the book to read. She was deeply moved by the book, and that night had a dream of Jesus coming to her, leading her from darkness into beautiful light. She asked the American lady, their names are Bob and Georgianne Marley of California. Does anyone, I thought it would be most interesting if someone knew the Marleys from California. Bob and Georgianne Marley of California. She asked them how to follow Christ. It was explained to her, and she believed. She immediately began to witness to her family. Well, a couple days ago, the Marleys heard Kumara screaming and screaming. For an hour, they listened to her scream and finally went downstairs to see what's the matter. And the family had locked Kumara in a room, and the mother and the sister were steadily beating her, trying to beat out the Jesus devil. When Kumara saw the Marleys, she ran crying to them, clinging to them, shaking, trembling, saying her family were going to kill her, to slit her throat with a knife if she did not give up Jesus. The family denied it, but it was obviously true. The father got down on his knees before Kumara, begging her to give up Jesus, as no one in untold generations of his Muslim family had become Christians, that she must not bring this terrible disgrace upon his family. She said, I do not want to give up Jesus, and I do not want to die either. Her father said she cannot be allowed to dishonor the family name. The next day, they heard her screaming a great long while, cars coming and going. A Muslim doctor called. Now the house is locked up, and all have gone to a place called Vijayawada, 150 miles to the east, to a high-ranking Muslim leader who will deliver her from this Jesus devil. Kumara says they will throw her off the train, that they will not let her return alive. The little girl is right now facing untold suffering, efforts of brainwash, possibly use of drugs to get her to give up Christ. She has not had years of Bible teaching nor church snogs or services to give her a foundation. She has only 2 or 3 day experience as a Christian and must face such tests, possibly death, and at 14 years of age. In a later letter, my brother wrote and said, and Kumara never came back. He never saw her again. Can you imagine the cost to do the will of the Heavenly Father? Sometimes it's very, very costly. Thirdly, the will of the Heavenly Father is celebrative. True joy, deep sense of true satisfaction and celebration only comes from doing the will of the Heavenly Father. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have remained faithful, and now a prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, that the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the great day of his return, and the prize is just not for me. You can truly celebrate things that you do that last for eternity. My wife and I were at the In-N-Out Burger over there in Gilroy. You know the place I'm talking about. We went there last December, just months ago, on the 27th. And it was super packed, and I was standing waiting to grab one of those tables, and there was a older Spanish lady behind me, and she says, you waiting for a table? And I says, yes, but you're welcome to join us. See, I believe that every day the child of God gets up, there are divine opportunities. And so this man and wife came and sat with us as we were eating that nutritious food. And some of you know that I ask people the question a lot before I take off. Let me ask you, what do you need the Lord to do for you? And I asked that gentleman that question there that night too. And he said, bringing back. I went, what? I'm hard of hearing. He says, bringing back. What had happened on the 24th, 3 days earlier, his son, who has a wife and 3 children, went over the hill on a motorcycle, went off the road, and he was killed. And we're sitting with a couple who just 3 days ago lost their son. And I began to pray for that couple, and folks, it doesn't really matter how many people are around you. When you know that you're in a smack dab in the middle of God's will for your life, and you have been led by the